Okay, I did a review of the Silent Scout by Carmanon. Here I'd like to go through some maintenance components. Primarily I'm going to go through opening the canopy, going through and seeing the internals of the helicopter, looking at how to change the blades. A lot of times such things can break on crashes, and it's good to know how to kind of get into this helicopter. It's a beautiful helicopter, and I'm sure you want to keep it in tip-top shape. Okay, so the tools you'll need, obviously, is they're provided to you. One is a small Phillips head that comes with it, and a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench. I also have my own, but they do provide those two with for you. And here's my 1.5 Allen wrench. It's also useful is one of these guys. So let's start. I always like to start by taking the blades off, and you want to mark the blades. For example, if this one's going on this blade grip, just mark it or remember which one goes where. So put this down here. It's always safe to remove blades anyways. Not that anything's going to happen because the battery's not in there, but I would still do that. All right, next, let's take off the canopy. And use this, my own tools. So there's a screw here, here, and we may have to open these guys too, but we'll see. Great flying helicopter. I've really enjoyed flying this guy so far. Very easy to fly. Relaxing. Tiny screws. Gotta be careful not to lose them. But you can buy extra screws in case you need them. No, well, let's see. Should be easy enough to, there you go. There's gotta be another, screw. Nope, just have, okay, there you go. So 4 screws and the canopy comes off. And this is the light connecting to the board. Let me take that off. Remember the polarity? Black is on this side, okay? Unlike the other one. So negative is on the left here. Remember that? Note to self. So here's the board. This is where it's happening. It's a combined ESC and gyro board. See the motor connections going in here? They're soldered in here. These are the motor connections. And that's the receiver up on top. So let's take it one more step. Make sure you don't lose these screws. Put these screws here next to the canopy. Okay, next step is taking off the mechanics. So the way to do that, we're going to try to see where all the screws are, which side is the better side to open. I think maybe opening it from this side. Well, I don't know. We'll give it a try. Let's try this way. First, we need to remove the skid. Second one there. Okay, so 2 of them came out, 2 didn't, but they're all in there. Keep them together, put them aside. Okay, and these fins basically are press fit. They just come out, okay? They just come out. Take the fins out. So we'll start with these screws here. Make sure you look at the screws. Some of them are longer than others, but if they're smart, they'll keep them all standard. So that's this screw here. Yep, they're the same size so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 screws. All right, I might have to fast forward this, but bear with me. That's out, that's out, that's out. They're tiny screws. Oops, see, these are longer. The screws that go in the bottom parts are longer than the screws that go on the top. So be careful. Make sure you separate them, or at least remember that's the case. See, they're longer. The top parts are smaller. They're all, at least they're uniform. So let's see if this guy is the same. This one was also small. It wasn't. It's only the bottom ones that are long. This one and this one. A lot of screws on this. But if you want to maintain this helicopter, it's a joy sometimes to repair them and work on them. I always say you end up liking your helicopter or your model more after a crash. So far, it's maintaining the same philosophy. These 2 were the longest screws, and the rest are all about the same, or the same. I'm just going through all the screws on this side. And once you open it once or twice, you're going to learn and basically not worry about opening up every screw, only the ones you really have to. Because right now it's the first time I'm opening this. I'm not sure which ones I need to and which ones I don't. Okay, these screws are a little longer too on the tail, so careful on that one. Yeah, these are a little longer. Not sure if I had to open this, but Maybe you do. See, they're longer because they need to penetrate and go in here. So here you can disconnect. This is the light, the light connection. Okay, we're gonna take it out. That's for the LED. I left one screw here. Maybe I'll put this one back in here as well, just to not lose it, and make sure that I use the right screw again. So put this back in. Okay, minimize any confusion. We'll put this aside. So now, you see you have your motor there. This is the light. And there's one more screw here we're gonna open. It's a small screw also. Okay, now, let's see if we can just, I think I missed one. Let's see, this one here maybe. I opened that guy. It'll probably most likely just pop open. Oops. Let me just move these screws somewhere safe. Put them on this side. I don't want to lose any of these. It's always good to work on something soft like cloth or foam, like I am here. Okay, so let's see how this opens up. It's probably normally just, oops, there we go. Okay, that wasn't bad. So here's the internals. What a beauty. I tell you, helicopters have come a long way from when I started working on them. The model ones, that is. So you see, let me explain to you what's what. This is the beauty of this helicopter. There's no gears. In the past, this shaft was on a gear, and the motor had a pinion, and the pinion basically spun the shaft. A lot of helicopters are still like that, but on the smaller ones, they've been able to use a direct drive with a motor, which is a 1200 kV motor, direct shaft connected to the head. That's a beauty because, again, you minimize any damage to gears. It's a lot more efficient. There's no losses in the transfer of power. So it's just overall much simpler. The other major revolution in my mind on the helicopters is the fact that they went with, again, the transmission of power is without a shaft. In the past, there used to be a belt or a shaft that rotated the rotor in the back, the tail rotor. But here, they're using a motor again. The technology today, as I've mentioned in the previous video, is such that the response rate of these motors are much faster, and also they're quieter. So aesthetically, it's nicer, and also it is much simpler to build and cheaper. So just imagine, they've reduced the number of components. They've reduced the number of parts that might break or get damaged. So what's there not to like in this? It's just amazing, to me at least. Anyhow, I'm going to take this guy out. Remember, the positive is on the left here, whereas in the previous one it was on the right. So we'll take this out, which is odd. I don't know why they're flip-flopped, but we're going to take, again, it's the LEDs, and this one went into the middle portion, middle port. Okay, we're going to put this aside. Okay, now, so here's the optical sensor. It's connected to the board. Comes in here, I believe. Connects right here. This is the rear tail motor connection. It's three connections. So if you have to replace your tail motor, you just unplug this and take the wires out, and just go back here, remove these bolts. Tail motor comes off, and that's that. The nice thing about this version, this helicopter, is they have a carbon fiber bar here to strengthen the tail. On the F06, Xiang F06, they didn't have this. And it broke all the time. Every time you even kissed the tail to the ground, it broke or cracked. So this is a good addition. This is your mode LED, and also a nice LED. This is where you see if it's in optical control mode or manual mode, or if there's when it's time to land, this thing will be flashing. All right, so what are the components that could break on this thing, other than the fuselage itself cracking or this tail breaking, which are obvious fixes? You have to open it up and just either buy a new fuselage and repair it or whatnot. So the shaft, this is the shaft. The main shaft can bend on crashes, and that main shaft is connected to the motor. So the way you would remove it is you have to open this Allen, hex. It's a 1.5 millimeter hex. Yep, 1.5. Open that. Open that. Take these links off with one of your, just basically click it off like that. One, and then you can do all. You have to basically bend it a little bit and then push it out. It'll click out. On these small helicopters, you could do it like this. This was just the antenna. Just put it back in. I'll put it back in later. You can twist it and it comes off. There you go. Okay, so these are your two servos. One servo here, one servo here, and one servo in the back. That's the elevator. This is the aileron, and that's the pitch, typically, the names. And you can take the elevator off too in order to take off the head. An easier way of doing it is to take off the other side too, but you could do it without taking off the other side. You can basically disconnect this. Just a flat head and click it off. Okay, so now the swash plate can move freely, and there's a hole there. You can take it down and pull it out. So now your swash plate is free. All right, I'm just showing how you can dismantle this thing pretty easily. It's really not that hard. So then, to remove the shaft, you have to take out the Jesus bolt, which is this bolt here we talked about. It's called the Jesus bolt because if this thing opens up during flight or if it breaks, your whole rotor head's going to come off. So there's a lock nut there that comes off, and the Jesus bolt comes out like this. And then your head assembly comes off. Very easy and simple. Now, another thing that could normally go wrong in a crash is your feathering shaft can bend. Inside this thing, there's something called the feathering shaft, and it's connected. You will need two Allen wrenches like this. I'm going to use the one they gave us here to open it up. And you have to go clockwise and it opens up. Keep going. Okay, so it'll come off. This is where you have bearings on you can see inside there's a bearing. It's not a thrust bearing, it's a regular bearing. On the bigger helicopters, these are thrust bearings. So this comes off. You see there's a washer. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. There's a washer, and then the 1.5 inch bolt. When you put this back in, you have to put a tiny bit of thread lock on this. Not too much, because it could go in the bearing, but tiny bit. I'll show you that in a second. So this is your feathering shaft. It can slide out like this. There are 2 spacers on each side. Okay, and then there comes out like that. So as you open it, be careful, because there's a spacer on this side, spacer on this side, and also you have dampeners in here. These rubber things are called dampeners. Okay, they help take off the vibration off the blades. There's one on this side and one on this side, both sides. You can see one here and one here. And the washers are flat. They're sitting flat on this head. So this is your head assembly. So the shaft itself that you would have to replace if it bends is this shaft, and it comes out of your grip like this. So here's the shaft, and the shaft has a bearing on it, as I mentioned earlier. This is a regular bearing. It's not a thrust bearing. Just on these small helicopters, you don't need thrust bearings. It's just a regular bearing, ball bearing. And these could also go bad over time, and your head could have a vibration, but not for a while. On a crash, typically this feathering shaft bends. Okay, so this is one way of repairing this helicopter. So we'll go ahead and put it back together, and I'll show you the other areas that could break, including these links. See these links? They could break, and in a crash right here, they break. So what you have to do is open it up. I think this is it's a Phillips head here. Open this up, and as I showed you, using a needle-nosed plier, you can just open that. Just open it like this, and it comes right off. Okay? Comes off. And then you just replace it, making sure it's the right direction. So the top side of the grip is this, where the screws are round, and the bottom side is hexagonal, where you're okay. So let's put this back. So this guy has the bearing on it. I already have the bearing in this one, so it's not from here, it's from this other guy, which doesn't have the bearing. And you do have to lubricate this when you put it back in. I normally put silicone grease on this. Let's put it back in. I hope you can see this. Okay, there. Then next we put the spacer with the flat side facing the head assembly. You can use your 1.5 millimeter to push it in. And when you put the grease, it's much simpler. It goes in easier. We're not going to do that here. I'm just showing you how it opens and closes. It has enough grease in it. It's a new helicopter. So you can use a flathead to push this down. Okay? And I mean, obviously it's easier to dismantle the let's get this right. I might have to take it up apart so that it comes easier for it to go in. Okay, so that's that. Other way. Don't forget the spacer. Interesting doing this on a video. I do this thousands of times. But when you're on video, it's strange. Okay, this goes down. Okay. Now you take this, hold this side with one wrench, 1.5, and you need to put thread lock on these, okay? Tiny bit of thread lock on there. Again, I'm demonstrating, so I'm not going to do that here, but you do need to put thread lock. But don't put too much because you don't want it to seep into the plastic or the bearing. A very tiny bit. So you put that in here. Use both hands. Hold one still and rotate the other. Do not make it overly tight because you will strip this. These small, tiny bolts. Just hand tight is good, as long as you could still have free movement here. And this guy went to the opposite side. Just click it back in. There you go. So there's two of them. All right. So that's it. Very simple. I mean, it's not that hard. And when you put this back in, look at the swash plate. One of the ball links is longer. That's for the elevator. Okay, that's for the rear servo. And then the other two are smaller. You can see it like this. See, this is small, and this is a better way of seeing it. I hope you can see it. Small, long. This one goes in the back. All right, so that's that. We'll put this back in. We'll put the long, here, that's the long one. Ball link goes in here. Just like you took it apart, slide it back in. Push this back a little bit, not too bad, not too hard, you might break it, but push it back and slide it down until you go to the opening where it could go into the stopper. That's the long, you see there's a little round opening there. You just pull this back slightly and it will slide right back in. Again, it was probably simpler to take it all apart, but I didn't see the need to do that. You just have to make sure you can do it. There you go. See, it goes in. All right, not a big deal. And you could reconnect the links by just pressing on them. It's not too hard, but you know, just links right back on. Hope you can see it. It's tiny. And just press it. There you go. Okay, now the Jesus bolt has to also go back in, making sure you have the connectors in the right format. Let's put the Jesus bolt back in. Got to line up Make sure it's going actually in the shaft. Okay, the bolt goes on the side that has a groove, and the head goes on the opposite side. There. So one way you know it's in is when you rotate it, the motor's turning. Take this one. This is the locking bolt. Put the locking bolt back in. It's tricky. Sometimes it's too tiny. But you hold it and then it should go back in. Come on, don't embarrass me. Ay, ay. Okay, well, we'll get it in. You can let it slide back so you can use the grooves to help not move that. And there you go. Again, don't make it too tight, just hand tight. These are small helicopters, so they're not going to go anywhere. All right, that's how you would replace the head. And if you wanted to take the shaft out, I mean, it would be the same exact principle. You take out the head assembly, and then you just open this bolt down here, and you could just pull out the shaft. You don't even have to take the head out if you just want to take the shaft out. You can open this and that, and obviously take it out of the slide, disconnect the links, and just pull this out. Okay, so servo replacement is, I think, the biggest issue is opening the body, and then just you see how there's no real screws for the servos. There's slide there. The only thing that you would have to open is that screw, and this plastic part is holding the aileron and pitch servos in place. So you'd have to just take off this part, which includes this anti-rotation, swash plate anti-rotation component, and each servo just comes right out. The elevator servo is a little different. It has its own screws. You just open these. This plastic part is holding the servo in place. It comes right out. Okay. And obviously motor replacement, you could do the same. You know, you'd have to just open all this and just pull the motor out. It'll come out. What else? If you need to replace the board, you'd have to open these 1, 2, 3, 4. This comes off, and then we can do that. We can open that and show you as well. But make sure you understand or mark down, take a picture of where all these components are going, okay? That way you can remember. These are the servos. So you got the signal wires all pointing forward, and the ground is towards the back. But which is which, you have to remember. Which is the rudder, well, the rudder is the tail motor here, sorry. Which is the pitch, which is the elevator, and which is the aileron. Okay, we'll have to do that. You have to make sure you identify them. Okay, let's see what else is in here. Let's disconnect. This is the tail motor. If something's not coming open, do not force it. Take a look and see why it's not coming. Because these are small components; they'll break right away if you're not careful. Okay, we're not going to force this, but this is your tail motor connection that goes in here, comes out. It's a little tight. Okay, and you can't go wrong with the reconnection because the slots are in the top, and you can't go wrong with this one. Okay. Take this one out too. This is your, this looks like your optical flow sensor. Taken out. And the rest are the servos. Who knows which one is which, but we'll just keep the same sequencing, I guess. If we're lucky, we'll keep it back, get back the same. You can also test all this. All right, so we took them out. Hold on, I need to mark these before I forget. Okay, I had to go and get a pen, marker, and make indications of what's what, because I was gonna forget everything. So as you can see, I've just marked each location with what it was. Like this would be the O is for optical flow connector, okay? And then the servos, I just did 1, 2, 3. Not sure which one is which, but 1, 2, 3. And then here, as you remember, the positive was on this side, negative on this, and the other one was opposite, positive, negative. And then this is the light module this guy here, okay? And this was the tail motor. So now, once we have a good feel of what's what here, we can open the top of this guy and see what's inside. Or at least I know what's inside, but I'm going to explain to you, and let's look at it on this guy, what it looks like. Again, this is the combination gyro flight controller ESC box, this white thing. It's the brains of the helicopter. They've made significant progress on these things. I'm always amazed to see the evolution. Beautiful. Okay, so we took four screws off, and this thing looks like it's loosening up and just coming out. See there. Okay, so this, all right, this is, not sure how much of it you can see, but it's a combined gyro ESC. This is the ESC, the lower part, and the top part is the brain of the gyro. And it says F07. So it's the same board as the Xiang F07. A lot of these helicopters use the same components, so I'm not surprised. Even though this is a F08, using F07 board. Anyways, I don't want to take this take it apart any further right now, but you could see that it's fairly simple, and that's the receiver and the flight controller up here, with its, and there's the antenna that fits right in there. Goes right, see this thing, the antenna right here? That's the antenna, and it's not. I can pull this out, but I don't want to fish it back in right now. If you want, we can take this apart as well and see what's on top. But it's probably glued because you have these other components. The brain is in here. But this is the ESC, where you have your battery connection. Here, the battery connection comes in here. The motor is, tail motor is here, And the main motor connections are here. If you need to replace them, you have to desolder these. Same with the battery connections. Very nice. Be careful not to touch these. That's why I'm wearing gloves. You don't want to put any grease on any of these components. Could be problematic. Right, what does this say? PCB version 5.0. Oh, okay, there's a couple of screws here we can take out. See where we go. Trying to show what's inside, so might as well do it, right? Be bold and move forward. Okay, it's coming out. I can feel it. Yep, this is just, there you go, push it down. Wait, there must be another screw. Yep, there's another screw here. 3 screws. One is missing. No, there's only 3 screws here. Only 3 screws. Okay, 3 screws up there. All right, here we go. This is the brain. We'll put this back down. Here's the gyro board. I'm glad we did take it apart because it's beautiful. Be careful. This is where the gyro is. These are the connectors for the servos, optical flow. I think this is a DSMX or Spectrum connector. I bet you can use a Spectrum on this. What else can I see in here? You know, lots of electronics. That's the antenna in case you damage it or something. So these connectors just ride the ESC. And I have my Allen wrench here. This basically just sits, it clicks into the ESC. This is just like what they did on their previous models. The Xiang F08, which was their acrobatic version of these helicopters. Oops. Be very careful. These are very gentle. You can break them easily. But they fit on here. Click in. And just sit on top of the ESC. Got to be careful with the alignment of these. There. So this is it. It sits on top and it functions like that. All right. I hope this was helpful. I'll put it back together now, and maybe that's also useful to see how you put it back together, because it could be tricky. But I will fast forward this video if I need to. All right, so we'll put this back in. Again, the way it was like this. There are 3 screws here. Again, be careful with your greasy hands. Let's put them back in. There's 2 in the front and 1 in the back. And they're the same size screws. Don't over tighten. Only hand tight. Okay, that's it. So now, gently take this. Here, this is the whole module. See that? There. The antenna comes out, and this is it. So you have to fish the antenna back in there and put this thing, you need to make sure this thing is, the connection points go in where they're supposed to go. Otherwise you'll have issues. And there's one last part here on the back. Just make sure they're all going in, okay? Gotta have a nice, all the connection points going in. And then you put it back on here. Fits nicely. And you put your screws back in, the 4 screws. I think the binding is also on here, but I have to check. You can bind this helicopter with another. Typically they have a button here that you can use to bind with another transmitter. On the other versions they had a button. I don't see that button here, but there is an opening here in case you want to have a new transmitter. I think there's a bind button somewhere. I will confirm. We'll put this back in, reconnect it. Again, I might fast forward some of this because it does get boring as I opening and closing, but I just want to make sure you guys and gals see what's inside without doing it yourselves. And if you do have to, you can always reference this video. A lot of these helicopters are similar, but they have their own intricacies. Okay, so these are all together. So let's go back and see what we had. This is one. This is for here. It's the optical flow LED. Goes back in. This is the optical flow sensor itself. Goes in here on the first connection. They're so tiny. Gosh. Okay, then the servos. This is the tail motor, goes back in with the connections on the top. So it's important to mark it. This is the first servo. We have the, maybe it's easier to use by gently use this guy. This is first servo going in here with the signal wire facing to the front of the helicopter. This is the second one, number 2. Oh, no, that's number 3. Oh no, that's number 3. Okay, number 2 goes here. Oh man, it's so tiny. Number 2 goes here. Come on. Number 2 goes here. Okay, and number 3 goes right above it. And all the signal wires are facing the front. Okay, all right. So let's put this back together. Okay, so the antenna, if you recall, goes right here. I'm gonna put that in here. It's kind of like sits there. You can put a little bit of a glue on that to keep it there. You take the other half, This LED, if you remember, was going here, and we had the I put positive, negative, but I think it's the backwards because this thing is, yeah, it's negative, positive. It's the opposite of the front one, and it shows because it was the way it showed itself. Okay, let's put this back. You have to gently slide everything back into where it was. There are guides in here. You have to just, this will take some trial and error sometimes. Okay, just be patient to put this antenna back in here. You have to guide them back in, and it slides back in. Okay, before it's closing, I'm going to put this antenna here. Okay, close there. Just closing everywhere. Make sure all the guides are back in place and clicking properly. Okay, so now we resume by putting the screws back in. Okay, just before that, make sure all the wires are in. They're not obstructing anything. And all the points of connection are where they're supposed to be. Okay, so we'll start with the front. Put them back in gently. Again, you don't over tighten these, only hand tight. Okay, just as soon as it gets tough or tight, you stop. 1, 2. Again, as soon as it gets a little tight, you stop. You don't want to overdo these because they do become it's helpful if you magnetize your screwdriver. These are very tiny screws and they will fall apart on you. And another thing, got to be careful, this motor has magnets in it, and these things can and will go inside. And when that happens, it's a big problem, okay? Because then obviously you're gonna have issues. So be careful with these screws going into your motor. That's one thing I should have said earlier. So I'm putting all the smaller ones in. We have the 2 bigger ones that go in the bottom. Don't forget about this magnet issue, because I have a feeling some of you are gonna have that problem. It will be a big headache, trust me, huge headache. Okay, get all the, I will fast forward this, as I said earlier, if I have to. If I find that it's boring, but we'll see. So you see, I put made sure everything slid back in properly, and just putting all the little screws back in now. one remaining. Let's see, where's that one? Missing one. Oh, right here. Okay, now, if you recall, we had the fin, and the fin LED light only connects one way, so you just reconnect the LED lights. Push it back in and tighten these screws as well. Fit them in the slots. I have to wear some magnifying glasses sometimes for these small maintenance helicopters. Maintaining these small helicopters, I do wear this with a light. So I wouldn't be able to see these properly if I didn't. Just letting you know. Okay, so that's on. We can put the landing gear back on. And it connects into the slots right down here. Put it back on. Just tighten the screws. Very simple. This is actually really easy to maintain. They've done a great job on this helicopter. I really think. I really do think so. I do remember, we do need to put the bottom two screws, the longer ones. I haven't forgotten. Just making sure I put the landing gear in first. One more screw here. Okay. Sometimes you have to loosen the other one before you can make the other one fit back in to align it. I'm not having any luck here. Let's see what the heck's going on. Okay, I had to force it back in. That's the reason. I refuse to force these unless I really, really have to. Okay, so all these four are back in. Now we put in the two long screws that went in the bottom of the fuse. One here. And one here. So really, you don't need to take out everything if you want to just access the board. There are 4 screws you take out, and this canopy basically comes right off, okay? So not very, very nicely made. So just put this back. Again, on this one, I need to change the markings I put here, because this one going to be negative. I was wrong. Negative here and then positive here. And let's cross this one out. And then this one is positive and negative. Just to remember. Okay, connects back in. And put it to the side. And try to put this back on. Let's see how this works out. There you go. Very simple. These two things slide in. See the slide right there? Connects right into this. There. On both sides. Very easy. And you put the four screws back in. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this applies to not only the Carmanon version OH-58, but also the F08 from Xiang has the same exact opening and closing. Very similar. I mean, it's the same helicopter. So obviously it's going to be the same. With a different livery. But I'm impressed with how simple they've made these. I have made videos of my 450s and 500 size helicopters that are a lot more expensive, but do the same, have the same everything really. The same controls, flybarless controls, the same mechanics. Okay, and not too tight on anything, right? So then you put the fins back on. Just press fit, and that's it. 1 and 2. You click. I'm going to put LEDs on this at some point, and I'll do a video on that. And then, of course, your blades. And the way the blades go on, just in case you forgot, the leading edge is always on this, where your linkage is. See, this is where your leading edge is going to be, right there. Okay, so the blade would look like this on the leading edge. And you put the bolt back. And I'll show you the tightening method that has worked for me, and I think is the right method for these helicopters. As I mentioned before, they need to be tight, but not too tight, and loose, but not too loose. And I'll tell you how I do that. Okay, it goes in. So you first make it tight enough. That's too tight. Okay, you gotta have it looser. So you can, with one finger, you can kind of move it like this. Okay? And then we do the next one. Again, leading edge is going to be where your linkage shows, right? Okay, a little looser. This is tight, too tight. Don't make it too tight because you're going to have vibrations. This is too loose. This is really loose. A little tighter. This is good. So the way I look at it is when you hold the helicopter like this, the blades shouldn't fall. But they should fall if you flip it up. So this is still too tight. So we want to make it slightly looser, by a tiny bit. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, this is good on this side. See if I move it up quick, this comes down. Not this one, not this one. So make it a little looser, just a tiny bit, And that's it. And you can basically feel it when you do this. See, it stops. It stops when you want it. For me, this has worked the best on these helicopters. And on most helicopters that I fly. I make sure it's tight like that. So this basically concludes opening this and showing you what's inside, showing you some methods of looking at, you know, what's inside first of all, and then removing this wash plate, removing these links, making sure that, you know, you understand the internals of this helicopter. Anyhow, if your tail blade breaks, let's figure that one out too. There are 2 bolts here, 1, 2. You open them and you remove. Make sure the direction of the blade is correct. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So if you see the angle here, make sure you replace it this way. Okay? And the leading edge is at an angle. Okay? Otherwise, you're not going to have proper control. Any questions you have, please note below, and I'll get to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much. Again, this is a review of the Silent Scout, or the OH-58 Kiowa. Thank you.